I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks. Hey, welcome to the program on this New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to everybody out there as we get ready to do another one. I mean, another 365 days. Who knows what's going to happen this year in 2020? My goodness. I mean, it has been a wild 2019, and here we go. I mean, we're going right into this big election year. There's going to be so much to talk about, so much on the presidential side. I mean, I'm excited about that because this really will be one for the history books. You know what I mean? And I know everybody says that. This election or that election is the most important election, and that, in our lifetime, and that gets pretty boring. I mean, you might have, in hindsight, that might actually be what 2016 was, just because of everything that was at stake, the radical left that Hillary Clinton represented, the Supreme Court seats that were up, that are now still really up with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or maybe even others coming off of the court in the future. So that'll certainly be an issue in 2020. But in 2016, I mean, if you remember, I was convinced that religious freedom would have been totally redefined as we know it today if Hillary Clinton would have won the White House. There's no question about that in my mind. And so I consider the Supreme Court picks alone by the president to be such a blessing to essentially have a government, at least for the foreseeable future, that is going to maintain a certain status quo of religious freedom. Now, I think there's some ground that we need to take back, quite honestly, about what religious freedom actually means in our Constitution. But at least for the time being, if the goal is to go about our life, me personally as a Christian, preaching the gospel of peace, being able to do that, without fear that the government's going to do what they're doing in China. Did you see what is going on in China? Hang on one second. I tweeted about this. I couldn't believe this the other day. This was after I got off the air. I saw that China has now officially, according to this one report, saying that the Bible needs to be rewritten because it's just not pro-Chinese Communist government. Yeah, here it is. I had like a 3-tweet post here. Hang on, I'll show this to you guys. Those of you who are watching the program up at Facebook.com. Let me show you what I tweeted out yesterday. This is 3 of 3 here. Hang on one second. You can follow me, those of you listening, at Paul Harrell 1776. First of all, I quoted this book, How Should We Then Live? Francis Schaeffer, theologian. This is what he said. He said, if we as Christians do not speak out as authoritarian governments grow from within or come from outside, eventually we or our children will be the enemy of society and the state. No truly authoritarian government can tolerate those who have real absolute by which to judge its arbitrary absolutes and who speak out and act upon that absolute. And the third tweet is this story. China orders pro-communist Bible revision, admits Bible is anti-communist. It's from a website called nationalfile.com. Now think about that for a second. Let me reread you this quote again. Francis Schaeffer. If we as Christians do not speak out as authoritarian governments grow from within or come from outside, eventually we or our children will be the enemy of society and the state. No truly authoritarian government. I think the Chinese government is a truly authoritarian government. No truly authoritarian government can tolerate those who have real absolute by which to judge its arbitrary absolutes and who speak out and act upon that absolute. Well, let me just give you an example of an arbitrary absolute. One example of an arbitrary absolute would be that life begins when the mother decides that it's life. Life begins at 9 months. Life begins when the baby's outside of the womb. Those are arbitrary absolutes, and the government has since had to draw new lines in the sand, right? I mean, look at the laws that have passed. Look at where we are in abortion versus where we were here in Arkansas in the 90s when people thought, it's just a clump of cells, right? Those are just arbitrary lines being drawn in the sand by men. But when the baby is conceived, that is a new human life. It is an absolute that's what it is. Just an example. And I bring specifically Roe versus Wade up here because this theologian that I'm quoting, Francis Schaeffer, in his video series, How Should We Then Live, he was shooting it shortly after the 1973-74 verdict where he said Roe versus Wade is essentially abandoning the Christian consensus of our country. It's now over, and so what comes next is vast immorality and a overreacting government that's going to try to manage the citizens' immorality. And then that cycle continues. I think we see this locally. For example, there's a lot of people where I am here up in Northeast Arkansas that are talking about getting these sky cops. Have you heard about sky cops? Sky cops are these towers or these systems able to monitor in maybe high crime areas. The first time I saw one when I was over in Memphis, and there was one in the Bass Pro Shop parking lot. It was one of those, it was more like a makeshift tower that is, portable, if you will, but it's got microphones on it. It can sense gunfire. Obviously, it's got video. You've got somebody monitoring. The idea is that, the presence there is going to deter crime, and if there is crime, there's an eye in the sky. They can get officers there fast enough, and this is because there's an uptick in shootings and violent crime and this ever-increasing morality. And the government's response is to attempt to put a camera so that they can watch what you're doing. Now, I heard, to me, I have great concern with this because I think it's a very slippery slope. At the same time, I totally understand why people would come to the logical conclusion that we need to have a camera on every corner. That's what New York City's done. Okay, that's what they've done across the pond over in Europe. They've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people don't know that they swapped out the magnetic sensors in the stoplights, and those are now cameras, by the way, and they could feed that to a central source, and the NSA would easily have access to it. I guess my point is if you're going to advocate for more government control, more observation, you have to understand that we quickly have the technology to enslave ourselves, because the next step is, if we just put a camera in everybody's home, that would also give the government more control, and we'd be able to do what's right. We'd be able to try to stop bad things from happening. That's what all this is we're trying to stop bad things from happening, and it is a slippery slope. To not understand that we have the technology now to enslave ourselves is like watching the Terminator movies and thinking that Skynet is a good idea. Let's create that. It'll make our lives so much better. We have to understand that the technology that we have now is fast going to be easily. The more immoral we become as a population, the larger government gets to try to control an immoral population. Immoral people will always find a way to break laws. The more and more people that understand that, they have freedom and they don't have any responsibility with that freedom, then we're having problems. And that's where we are right now. But that's where China is. I want you to understand something. With China, and yes, with Arkansas doing all this business with the communist Chinese, I'm very embarrassed But, I mean, if you look at the government that they're setting up and you're looking at the Silicon Valley tech giants like Google that are helping them enslave their population further, they're coming up with something called a social credit score, which is already being implemented. This is what they want to do here. This is their vision for what they want to do here. A social credit score, which means, you know what, if you associate with the wrong people and they'll be able to track you, your social credit score goes down. They're doing this in China right now. The lower your social credit score is, the less amenities you have access to. So if you go to the wrong website that the government doesn't really want you to go, your social credit score gets hit. Likewise, if you associate with the right kind of people, the pro-communist kind of people, your social credit score will go up, and you'll be able to ride the subway and where you weren't yesterday because you went to the wrong website. Likewise, if you go to church in China and you're a Christian, it is safe to say that your social credit score is going to go down. What a total travesty. Again, if we as Christians, this is Francis Schaeffer, if we as Christians do not speak out as authoritarian governments grow from within or come from outside, okay, so the authoritarian elements of our own government here in America, we need to speak out against. The authoritarian governments that we see around the world, we also need to speak out against, he's saying. Why? Because if we don't, eventually we or our children will be the enemy of society and the state. Now, why is that? Because no truly authoritarian government can tolerate those who have real absolute. What's the absolute truth that Christians claim to have? The Word of God in the Bible, okay? Those can tolerate those who have real absolute by which to judge the governments, the totalitarian governments, arbitrary absolutes that change from one day to the next depending on, I don't know, just the capricious fallen nature of man. We've talked about the new clergy in our society, which are the news priests, the news anchors, can condemn you or absolve you by an ever rotating moral wheel of fortune from one day to the next to fit their agenda. Right? These arbitrary absolutes that constantly change because they're not based on actual truth. Here is the actual article. Let me click on it here. I'll show it to you. China orders pro-communist Bible revision, admits Bible is anti-communist. Church forced to change name to follow the party, obey the party, and be grateful to the party. Again, from nationalfile.com, the Communist Party of China plans to rewrite the Christian Bible, functionally destroying thousands of years of Christian faith and history. After failed attempts to force Christian churches and faithful to abide by its standards, the Chinese Communist Party leaders have determined to rewrite the Bible to better reflect their own agenda. In November, a group of 16 representatives of different religions from the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China were ordered by Wang Yang, chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, to address the teachings of the Bible and other religious texts and rewrite the, quote, radical portions to reflect China's national progressive stand. Mr. Wang stressed that religious authorities must follow President Xi's instructions and interpret the ideologies of different religions in accordance with, quote, the core values of socialism, end quote, and, quote, the requirements of the era. This according to a French newspaper, Le Figaro reported. So there you have it. I mean, why do they feel the need to do this? Why do they feel the need to? Well, it's because, first of all, I was talking with a friend of mine. This was probably a month or so ago. Who has been approached to do some writing for China. For certain productions and things like that. For example, so if you're wanting to perform something over in China, let's say a show or something, any sort of anything entertainment value over in China, China's receptive to it, to have American acts come in, right? But everything you do has got to go through some government department, and literally anything that paints, like if you were going to tell a story to kids or do some sort of theatrical production or some sort of acting, stage play, whatever, any character that you have who's playing someone in a position of government authority. It doesn't have to be the Chinese government. It could be a story about anybody. It could be a story about a magical fairy tale land, okay? But this is the mayor of this magical fairy tale land. That person has to be 100% right all the time. Cannot be seen oppressing the main characters, cannot be seen as the antagonist at all. Okay, they make you rewrite the whole thing. So what do you think they think when they read the Bible? Okay, I'm just kind of doing some deductions here, but they see a man, Jesus, in the New Testament specifically, okay? Just take the New Testament. But you can also take the Old Testament. You know, you could take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, no, I'm not going to bow. And what does the government do? Well, okay, we're gonna kill you. Oh, wait, the government can't kill you because you were saved? You were thrown into the fire, but you didn't burn? That's very offensive to the Communist government of China. I can promise you that. The Chinese government was wrong and put on public notice, basically put on blast that they don't have the power they claim. What about King Nebuchadnezzar? Sorry, I said I was going to New Testament. Let's stay in the Old Testament. What about King Nebuchadnezzar, a guy who was, ruler of all and was so haughty, and God humbled him? Right? Wait a second. That can't happen because we are the ultimate power in this world. No, you're not. But that's what they think. Then you take a guy, you take the Son of God, you take Jesus, who not only disrupts the Jewish government of the day, right, and has the Pharisees and the Sadducees scratching their heads, pointing out how they're hypocrites, pointing out how they're wrong, pointing out how they've missed the message. They can't, how blind they are, that they can't see the fulfillment of prophecy is here. Then you look at the Roman government, where you have Jesus talking with Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate is asking him, are you a king? Then you have the whole thing where the government crucified an innocent man. The government doesn't make mistakes like that. The government isn't the Chinese government can't possibly have sentenced an innocent man to death. You see how offensive? Just that alone. If you know that about the Chinese, that they vet everything that they let their citizens consume. They vet it, and they don't want anyone in a position of authority to be portrayed or communicated as being fallible. Once you know that, oh my goodness, they would have to rewrite the Bible. The whole thing is about kingdoms rising and falling and a higher power being responsible for the whole thing. The New Testament says that it is God who is actually sovereign over who heads all governments, all nations. That's why they've got to change the Bible. That's why they've got to rewrite it. That's why they're tearing down churches. That's why they're persecuting Christian brothers and sisters over there right now. And it's not just Christians, it's also Muslims, the Uyghurs. We talked to an advocate for that group a couple of weeks ago. And all the while, Arkansas is wanting to do business with people with this type of ideology and this type of totalitarian mindset. It is a freakish mindset. It is an anti-liberty mindset. And that's what we want to do business with. All the while, the governor's law firm is taking money from the same Chinese entities. The same Chinese entities that we are giving, that the governor has given taxpayer money to. So what? The only thing I can think of, folks, we'll ignore who China really is for money. That's what I think. We're going to take a break. We got to take a 1-minute break here. Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic,
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, I want to remind everybody, so have a happy new year, obviously. We're going to be chilling tomorrow. I'm going to be, celebrating the new year on New Year's Day. But when we come back, we won't be on the radio anymore. So starting sorry, I got all this stuff going on in my ear that's not only there. We won't be on the radio anymore. We're going to be on conduitnews.com. Check out conduitnews.com right now. Also, we want you to go to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the little bell to receive notifications. We've got really going to be good stuff for you. Got to have basically new format, new shows. So check it out. Okay, that's what's happening starting on Thursday of this week. And we're going to hit the ground running. So, and we're gonna power through. We're going to still bring you the same great news insights that you get here with an Arkansas focus. So you definitely don't want to miss this. Let's see, watching the clock here, holding the fort down by myself. Here we go. We have a few of your comments here on the Facebook page. Let's see here. Jenny writing, very slippery slope, just like the Patriot Act. That's very much true. By the way, remember when Chuck Schumer and James Comey were on their high horse with John Ashcroft, Alberto Gonzales in the George W. Bush administration? The Patriot Act provision was going to expire. They put all of this pressure. Remember that when James Comey was like, they put all this pressure on me and I just wouldn't do it? Remember all that? Huh. That was all just a bunch of, posturing. And that's the one reason a lot of people thought James Comey was somebody who wasn't. And I'm talking years ago, not now. Obviously, we know who he is now. But a lot of people thought he was a man of principle. No. Not at all. He's just looking out for himself. But, yeah, the Patriot Act, definitely. Jenny also saying, don't forget Dietrich Bonhoeffer and how it turned out in Germany. It is coming to China and to American Christians. Well, I certainly hope not, Jenny, but it's in China. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, it's funny, I was looking at this book by Eric Metaxas. I got this book by Eric Metaxas for Christmas. I think I told you guys a little bit about it. It's called Donald Drains the Swamp. Eric Metaxas has written 30-something books, most of them very, very good historical biographies, one of them on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. You can check that out. Again, Eric Metaxas, it's just called Bonhoeffer, and he's got several others. But one of his newer books is called Donald Drains the Swamp. It's a children's book you can read to your kids at bedtime about a caveman named Donald who loved to build caves, and everybody wanted a cave built by Donald. The people were tired of their king not listening to them. They couldn't get to their king because he lived in a White House, and the swamp creatures in the swamp wouldn't let the citizens actually talk to the king. They would get in the way. Then they found out the swamp water is green, not because it's a swamp water, but because it's actual money. And Donald decides to dig a trench because the people ask him to drain the swamp. Check it out. It's by Eric Metaxas. It's really good.
Are you ready for the...
and military tools, as well as propaganda, to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Rui Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Rui, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Li to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Li. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the show this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. The telephone number, if you want to text me, 870-275-9799. We're up and broadcasting, though, on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel, but facebook.com/Conduit News, if you want to check that out. Also, again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel as we make this transition going all digital starting on Thursday. You want to click the little bell to receive notifications. All right, so there's a new book out. It's called Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales. It's by a gentleman by the name of Dylan Howard, and Dylan is on the line with us right now. Dylan, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is fascinating to me. You are, first of all, you're the Vice President and Chief Content Officer at American Media, Inc., where you oversee U.S. Weekly and OK, In Touch, RadarOnline.com. What can you tell us about this new book that you've got out called Dead Men Tell No Tales about Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, essentially, the revelation as part of this book is a remarkable story, and one which, on the very surface, many people will discount. But when you piece together the puzzle, it is abundantly clear who Jeffrey Epstein was. Not only was he a controlling and manipulative figure who sex trafficked underage women, he was also an individual whom was working as an international spy for Israel's Mossad, using the classic honey trap system in which the rich and powerful that he associated with were being set up, recorded, not necessarily always in the most nefarious sexual circumstances, but the conversations that he was having with those individuals was being passed back on to intelligence. Now, it's easy to say, sure, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but consider this. As part of our research in Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales, we speak to a former Israeli spy by the name of Ari Ben Mashani. Ari Ben Mashani happened to be the handler, the person who would look after the asset, if you like, the spy. And he, in the 1980s, was the spy handler for Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell is Jeffrey Epstein's former lover and the woman who is said to have procured these young women for Jeffrey Epstein, a claim that she has denied, but nevertheless is being investigated by the FBI for being a co-conspirator. Now, Ari Ben Mashani, in Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales, explains about a late 1980s interaction in which the business of Robert Maxwell was handed off to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. I mean, that's such a lot of information right there. Okay, so you're saying so he was intelligence. So I want to remind the audience. So the former labor secretary under the Trump administration took a lot of heat when all this came out because there were charges that were supposed to be brought against Jeffrey Epstein, significant ones, and Alexander Acosta essentially let him off. And it was reported that he said the reason he let him off is because he was told Jeffrey Epstein was intelligence. Now, I've talked to some attorneys that say, you know what, that may be, but if you're going to let somebody off on these type of charges, there needs to be some sort of documentation. Like, give me a document. Give me something I can point to that says this is why. That didn't happen as far as I'm concerned, which is why everybody, was so mad at the former labor secretary, former prosecutor down in South Florida.
Well, I believe Alex Acosta was essentially a patsy in all of this. The reality is, again, as part of our investigation, myself and my co-authors, who have been covering this case for 5 years, unearthed a document that would have actually, if Jeffrey Epstein agreed, avoided a grand jury, and he would have served 0 jail time. So he was actually offered an even sweeter deal than what he ultimately ended up accepting, which goes to show that there were forces at play. And also think about this. The FBI accumulated more than 32 women who had alleged that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked them in the 2000s. Yet despite that, the FBI handed this off to local law enforcement, and local law enforcement prosecuted the case. When the U.S. government at a federal level had the opportunity to take this case head on and chose not to. And the question has to be asked, why? I don't think that Alex Costa, by any stretch of the imagination, is the individual that we should be looking at saying, Alex, explain yourself. I think it goes much higher and much deeper.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that for sure. It's just incredible. I mean, what do you do if you're in his situation? I was told he was intelligence to let him go. I mean, you're gonna. I think most people are gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna let this guy go.
Exactly.
I mean, it would be not to say that it was a good thing to do. It wasn't, but I mean, if he's as connected as what you're saying, and let's just get right to it. You think he killed himself?
Well, I do think he killed himself.
Okay.
But I think the circumstances under which he did kill himself are very questionable. Nobody in law enforcement would allow somebody who tried to commit suicide 2 weeks earlier back into regular prison population. It just doesn't happen. They're put into solitary confinement. and they're not given the means or mechanisms by which to kill themselves. Instead, Jeffrey Epstein was. So I believe that there is something nefarious behind his death. I believe that he was given the opportunity to kill himself, which he did. And I believe that, again, we've merely scratched the surface about what took place behind the scenes. I think you'll find in 2020, as the House Democrats have requested documents related to his suicide and related to the sweetheart deal, that the unraveling of the Epstein conspiracy is going to become one of the biggest stories of the year. And those that it implicates, I believe, will be at the very highest level of U.S. government.
So you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell. So shortly after, I think it was shortly after the death of Jeffrey Epstein, she's spotted at a burger joint reading a book called The Book of Honor, The Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives. Did you see that photo? And I thought that photo was more of a message than anything.
Well, it was, but also it was a photo that wasn't real. It was doctored. The billboard in the background was outdated. The book itself was seemingly a jibe or a jab at authorities. And that is the great Where's Waldo type question at the moment. Where is Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, last week it was reported that the FBI wants to talk to her. Well, that's no secret. But if Ghislaine Maxwell was operating for Israeli intelligence, it would be a fair bet to assume that she's being protected somewhere under a witness protection program, out of harm's way, because she essentially is the custodian of the Epstein blackmail files. She knows everything that Jeffrey Epstein knew. And if she was working for Israeli intelligence, she now is obviously prime target 101 for federal authorities here in the U.S., but also around the world. Think about Prince Andrew and England. Prince Andrew is up to his neck in this, and I'm sure, from what I understand, that British intelligence are very concerned about the information that Maxwell and Epstein accumulated on Prince Andrew. So they too have a vested interest in trying to find Ghislaine Maxwell, protecting her to ensure that the crown is also protected.
Wow. Okay, so here's my next question. We're talking with Dylan Howard. He's the author of this book, Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales. So if Epstein was an intelligent or working for intelligence, and he's got all of this stuff, he's got his island that's very, very weird and creepy. He's a sex trafficker. He's doing these honey traps, if you will. How many? I mean, you look at these flight logs, Dylan, and America specifically has had for a long time such a disconnect with our politicians and our government. We don't understand so many times why a politician will say one thing on the campaign trail, but they won't actually act on it once they get into power. They won't try to reform the corruption. Is it? I mean, how many of our elected officials over the years have been being blackmailed? That seems to be what you're saying here.
Well, the reality is Jeffrey Epstein spent a lot of time with a lot of powerful people. And I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that people like Bill Clinton, Bill Richardson, others that have been linked to him were involved in nefarious sexual activities. But I can assure you one thing. They weren't talking about the NBA playoffs. So whenever these individuals were in the company of Jeffrey Epstein, everything they said and did was being recorded. How do I know that? I've seen hundreds of photos inside his home. Each room had a camera. They were all rigged up to one central room, which then fed into an office, and that office had industrial-sized photocopying machines, and everything was being recorded and stored on devices. So consider that during the time that Bill Clinton spent with Jeffrey Epstein, his wife was a senator and she was also the Secretary of State. They weren't talking about the New York Knicks in the playoffs. They were talking about international diplomacy and international issues. Information which was very highly valuable to foreign governments. And Jeffrey Epstein trafficked in that information. So the amount of people that were compromised by their association with this heinous character is significant. What he passed on, we don't know. Now, under Freedom of Information laws, when someone dies, the FBI seemingly has to turn over their entire case file into someone's death. The FBI has not. And myself and my investigators have actually sought to have that file released, unredacted, through those laws, and have sued the FBI to do so. The FBI has so far delivered a cache of documents that is heavily redacted, almost oppressively redacted, that prevents the information about these types of questions that you're asking from being released, which again, to me, points to the very fact that there is more to this story, and answers have been in short supply and remain in short supply to this very moment.
Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. I just hope, Dylan, and I know you hope as well, that the truth comes out. And especially, I'm hoping it comes out this year. You know, I hope it's I hope the concept of the year 2020 gives us a 2020 vision and into all these matters, because it's so important. I mean, the people need to know the truth.
Well said. Very well said.
Well, Dylan, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. It's great to meet you. Keep up the good work.
Happy New Year.
Yes, sir. Happy New Year to you as well. Folks, we're going to make a YouTube video of this, put it up at the YouTube page Conduit News. Please subscribe. Click the little bell to receive notifications. And we're going to take a break, going to reset here, and we'll be back in just a moment.
And military tools, as well as propaganda, to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
Money, power, prestige, essence, available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From Zenata Rhino Collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy New Year to everybody out there on this New Year's Eve. I saw the national news this morning on the way in, and like, revelers are preparing to descend upon Times Square in New York City. Like, revelers. I mean, why would you call? I guess that's what they are, but it's funny. I mean, that's actually calling a spade a spade. Revelers. The revelers and the debauched are starting to gather at Times Square in New York City. I've never wanted to go to these New Year's Eve as an adult, I guess. Like maybe when I was, I don't know. I am very weary of big cities in general. Don't like them. I don't like the, especially in this age, post 9/11. I don't like the target, that's on a major city. I'm not a fan in any stretch of the imagination. And I guess for some reason, the New Year's Eve celebrations in New York City or Los Angeles or wherever they are, they always remind me of the scene from Independence Day where that stripper is going to, one's Will Smith's fiance, and then the other's the redheaded girl from the Saved by the Bell, the college years. I can't remember that actress's name, but anyway, she's going to meet the spaceship. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. See, that's why I feel about big cities. You know what I mean? Like, they're dumb enough to just, like, go up and they're going to meet the aliens, and they have no... And she's like, it's so pretty, and then it's just this giant blast and destroys everything. When it comes to giant gatherings in cities, I don't know. Maybe... I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm scared. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't feel like I'm in control in those environments, I mean, isn't that what we're all trying to be in control? Some of your Facebook comments about this, we just were talking with Dylan, who is the author of, Dylan Howard, he's the author of this book, Dead Men, Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Of course, he says he thinks Epstein killed himself. He thinks he was given the opportunity to do it. And I'm thinking, okay, as valuable as he was, why would he be given the opportunity? I don't know. Interesting theory. I don't think he killed himself. There is literally nothing. I don't think there's any way to convince me and a majority of Americans, a majority of people around the world, that Epstein actually killed himself. That's just my opinion. So I would disagree with him on that. Here is some of your comments on this, because this was you guys were pretty interested in this. Let's see here. Randy, Epstein didn't kill himself. He was silenced because he was caught, and they didn't want him talking about all that he knew. Let's see here. We've got another one. Hello, Suicide Hotline. I'd like to make an appointment for my old friend Jeffrey Epstein. That's Dennis on Facebook writing that. What else do we have? Jackie writing, do you really think the Democrats are going to release anything about Epstein and his activities and his associations with high-level Democrats? Okay. What else do we have here? Oh, we got another one. I like this one. Randy. There's so many texts coming in right now, I can't keep up. They are controlled by intimidation, blackmail, or threat. 90% become puppets. You notice that question. That was really, it was how many, if this is true, and this is serious, I mean, and I think it's a safe speculation, if it's true that that's what Epstein was, he was an intelligence guy, he was gathering intelligence, and using it for blackmail. If that is true, how many of our politicians haven't been able to represent us, the people, because of blackmail? And it's got to be hundreds. You know what I'm saying? Go look at those flight logs. What else do we have here? Jackie, I'm not holding my breath on truth being unsurfaced in 2020. I got you. I know. I wouldn't hold my breath either. I'm just saying that's my hope. That's my hope. Lori, a different topic. Lori writing in, why does Asa Hutchinson want Syrian refugees here in Arkansas? That is a great question, Lori. That's a great question. Why does Asa Hutchinson want Syrian refugees here in Arkansas? If this was up to a vote, it wouldn't even be close. Let me say that again. If this was put to a vote of the people would reject Asa Hutchinson and his wishes to bring Syrian refugees here. The vetting process is better. Okay. Better. We're still taking people from a war-torn region that we don't know, and we have multiple examples of people from this area not assimilating. They basically sometimes, I hate to make these generalizations, but a lot of times they establish enclaves, and we see what's happened in Europe. We see the no-go zones. We see law enforcement. I mean, it's like, eventually you're going to enforce laws, and then you're an Islamophobe because you're enforcing these laws on. These laws are affecting this religious community. It's a total powder keg. It's a total setup, is what it is. I will tell you, the Arkansas General Assembly is not happy. Well, let me say this. Let me stop. There are some in the Arkansas House and Arkansas Senate that are very upset about what the governor's doing. There are people who are letting. You don't need to call the governor's office. Let me just tell you this right now. Do not call the governor's office and express your dismay. He's not going to listen to you. He doesn't care. He doesn't need your vote. Do not do it. If you're going to do anything, you call your state rep or you call your state senator. You need to call both of them, and you need to respectfully express how concerned you are that we would bring people here from war-torn areas and not assume that violence will follow them here, because it will. And it makes us less safe, period, okay? And the reason I say you need to contact your legislator is because they are the only ones that could push back on this. And this, I'm telling you right now, this may be, you never know, it may be the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to this blind loyalty to whatever the governor wants, the legislator does. I think we're nearing an end to that, just basically because of a lame duck concept. But at some point, call your legislator, call your rep, call your senator. That's the thing to do here. Don't call the governor because he's not going to listen. One more hour coming your way next.
Off.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Li to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Li. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas,
The Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary.
Chairman Li and I met yesterday. Chairman Li indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows, and our national
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. This is New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to everybody out there. We were just talking about all the reveling. Now, we really appreciate you guys listening. Want to remind you that we're going to be transitioning off the radio starting on Thursday. However, obviously, we're off tomorrow, so this is the last day on radio, but not the last day for Conduit News by far. We've got a ton of stuff going on. Check it out. New formats all launching on Thursday. So you want to stay tuned for the Conduit News Hour hosted by me. That's going to start on Thursday. So be looking out for that. Telephone number again, 870-275-9799. If you want to text, sound off on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Also, Family Counsel's Sharice Dean will be back with us coming up at 7:33. We're going to talk about what happened at that church in Texas. You know, a lot of people, I mean, I was amazed at how the mainstream media, for example, actually covered what the Lieutenant Governor of Texas and the pastor and the guy who was responsible for taking out the shooter, they actually just covered what they said, which was, you know, most of the time, law enforcement cannot get to a mass shooting until after the time. They can't get there until after the tragedies happen, and so you need to be armed. It's your responsibility to arm yourself because a lot of times the police show up with the chalk. You know, they show up willing to help, but a lot of times they end up just chalking your body. I don't think they do that anymore. Do they chalk bodies anymore at murder scenes? I don't know if they do that anymore. Remember in the alternate version of 1985 in Back to the Future Part 2, all of a sudden Hill Valley, they've got chalk marks on the pavement and everything. I don't remember bars being on these windows. A lot of people in 2016 made that comparison of Donald Trump and Biff Tannen from that alternate. You know, so at some point in the past, the timeline skewed, creating an alternate 1985. Okay, we got a couple of things to cover. First of all, we have Joe Biden's attorney here in Arkansas is upset. There's apparently some detective. There's like a detective that's wanting to get into this paternity case out of Independence County. A private investigator in Florida doesn't have grounds to intervene in Hunter Biden's Arkansas paternity case, Biden's attorney said Monday. Quote, plaintiff filed suit in this cause to establish paternity and for child support against defendant. The motion to intervene filed by DNA Investigations is a scheme by a non-party simply to make scandalous allegations in a pending suit to gain media attention without any material or pertinent material. Okay. So you've got this investigator that's trying to intervene in the case. There's a Fox News story on this is what I just read from you is Bill Bowden. Hang on, let me pull this desktop up for you so you can see it. What I just read for you guys is this Bill Bowden piece in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Biden's attorney decries sleuth's bid to enter case. But Fox News has an article on it here. Hunter Biden fires back after PI claims secret bank records verify $156 million counterfeiting scheme. counterfeiting. This is by Greg Ray. Hunter Biden's attorneys fired back Monday after a private investigation firm again attempted to stage a highly unusual intervention in his ongoing child custody dispute in Arkansas, this time claiming its investigators have lawfully obtained access to Biden's bank account records and confirmed his involvement in a massive $156 million, quote, counterfeiting scheme. In a motion to strike, Biden's legal team unconditionally denied the unverified claims and called the effort by the Florida-based DNA Investigations another obviously bogus scheme by a non-party simply to make scandalous allegations in the pending suit to gain media attention without any material or pertinent material. Now, you never know here. There's a couple things that could be happening. This could be legitimate, or this could be what's called controlled opposition. This whole thing could be used to make legitimate scandals that Hunter Biden has done seem illegitimate by just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at him. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's continue with this piece. This is fascinating. This has real-world Arkansas implications. We're talking about a case here in Arkansas. In a motion to strike, Biden's legal team unconditionally denied the unverified claims. Okay, DNA claimed in its most recent filing back on December 27th with the Court of Independence County, Arkansas, that it has provided attorneys for London Alexis Roberts. Now, that is the mother of the child. In the paternity test, remind you, with the paternity test came back, he is the father. Hunter Biden is the father. London Alexis Roberts, who was seeking custody over the child, said Hunter Biden fathered access to Hunter Biden's bank account records, subject of known felonies, including fraud and counterfeiting. DNA was seeking to be added as a party to the case, claiming it could support Roberts' accusations and prove that Biden was involved in illegal activity while dodging discovery quests. DNA alleged that the bank account records bear exhibit identifiers known by Hunter Biden as the subject of criminal investigations, both adjudicated and ongoing, of which he is a party to. The firm also claimed the bank records provide the source and destination bank account numbers of Burisma Holdings Limited, a private bank, Bank of China, Hunter Biden's business partners, Rosemont Seneca, and others. Speaking to Fox News late Monday, DNA claimed the FBI and Justice Department have been investigating Private Bank, the Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma, Biden and others since April 2019, and that the investigation remained open. The FBI did not return a request for comment from Fox News. The bank records verify the counterfeiting scheme, accumulating $156 million with an average account value monthly balance in the amount of $6 million. Burisma, the filing claimed, financed Atlantic Council, Ukraine, and associated rogue operatives from the U.S. State Department. It says, FVEI, is that Five Eye? And CrowdStrike in Ukraine suing Private Bank. Wow. So then they throw in CrowdStrike. Isn't that what the president was asking the president to investigate? 2016 CrowdStrike. This is fascinating. Again, it could be kind of a look over here, but I don't know. Hunter Biden held a lucrative role on the board of Burisma while his father oversaw Ukraine policy as vice president, prompting even career State Department officials to flag a possible conflict of interest. CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company that Trump said possessed the Democrat National Committee server that was hacked during 2016 campaign, a claim that fact checkers repeatedly have said was wholly invented. Well, remember when fact checkers said there was no way that Trump was wiretapped? How'd that work out for you? Yeah. Biden's attorney did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment, but the lawyers told the court that DNA's motion to intervene was riddled with falsehoods and clearly procedurally improper, and that Arkansas law required that intervening parties share common issue with the existing case. DNA had not even attempted to explain how its latest filing complied with the law, Biden's team said, noting that the latest motion to intervene simply outlined a series of accusations with no legal or factual support. You never know what a judge is going to do, though, right? You never know what a judge is going to do. There's that photo of them. Devin Archer, far left, former Vice President Joe Biden, his son Hunter Biden. Joe Biden has denied ever discussing his son's overseas business dealings, but Archer served with Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma Holdings. Must be nice, right? $80,000 a month. $80,000. Unbelievable. Anyway, we're going to keep monitoring this story because it's a big deal, and it's all happening right now in an Arkansas court over a paternity case. Oh, my goodness. Let's see here. Let's see, which one is this? Minimum wage. All right, let's go to here. Minimum wage. We've talked about this before, but starting on Wednesday, tomorrow, it'll be a new year, 2020, and that means minimum wage goes up. Because the people have figured out that they can vote themselves government, well, they can vote themselves money from private companies and businesses. The minimum wage. This makes it really hard on small business, but government politicians love minimum wage increases. The government politicians, they're all government, you know what I mean. Big government politicians is what I meant to say. Big government politicians love the minimum wage because it means they get more tax dollars. A lot of people don't know that. Did you know that? You might be out there thinking, minimum wage goes up. Well, gee golly, I can't wait. Yeah. The government wants your minimum wage to go up because that means they get more money. They get to tax you at the same rate, but you're making more, so they get to take more out of not just your paycheck, but everyone's paycheck. The reason I bring that, you say, Paul, why do you bring that up? What does it matter? Well, once you know that little piece of information, and you know there's a different incentive, that it's not all about you, the worker, maybe the rest of their arguments fall apart as well. Once you know there is an incentive that you don't benefit from, but the government does, maybe start to think about the entire concept of a minimum wage. See, the whole thing is flawed. A minimum wage is a flawed concept. Well, Paul, there'd be slave labor. No, there wouldn't. No, there wouldn't. There wouldn't be slave labor. You, as a free individual, should have the right to sell your services, your work, for whatever you want. And if people had that mentality, things would be very, very different. But people don't see. The scenario here is, and I know this is an esoteric debate. It's why it's kind of futile. No one's ever going to. The vast majority of people who are voting are going to continue to vote for minimum wage increases when they get the opportunity because it's just, well, it's more money in my pocket. But nobody is actually richer because of it. Well, the government is, but you're making it harder on businesses. Jobs dry up. It now costs more to hire somebody at a minimum when you don't have any skills. It actually hurts the people it claims to help. It does the opposite of what it claims to do. Not to mention, if you want to sell your services for $3 an hour so that you can become useful and learn a skill, then you can make even more after you've learned the skill. But anyway, I digress. It starts Wednesday. $10 minimum wage. Arkansans earning the state's minimum wage will receive a $1,560 raise in 2020 as the state's bottom wage increases to $10 an hour under an initiated act passed in 2018. So $10 an hour now here in Arkansas. And what's going to happen tonight at midnight doesn't make anybody any richer. Okay? The government is decreeing that we're now richer. The government's decreeing that the emperor has no clothes, right? You're now going to have more money per hour, but everything catches up. Prices go up. Rents go up. The cost of doing business goes up because it's an arbitrary inflation of what the actual scorecard is. Money is just basically keeping score. how much commerce is being done. From 11:59 tonight to 12 o'clock tomorrow, there will have been no cars, no more cars built, no more homes sold, no more homes built, no more whatever that measure is of economic prosperity. It will have remained the same, yet the government will have essentially arbitrarily declared we're now wealthier than we were. It's preposterous. But again, I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to be real honest here. I don't know what the answer is. As long as they just keep putting this stuff on the ballot, it's going to continue to go up. Minimum wage is going to continue to increase because people, the vast majority of people, don't understand that the very policy that is there to try to help them, the politicians say, actually makes jobs harder to create. And also can result in you being fired. Did you know that? Oh, we've gone over this before, but if you're a business owner, let's just take hamburgers, for example. If you are flipping burgers and you are making X amount of dollars an hour and you're able to, you're a better burger flipper than this other guy, right? But you're both making the boss money. You know, you can make 50 burgers in 30 minutes, and that's profitable for your boss at this wage. This other guy, he can only make, 30 burgers every 30 minutes, but the minimum wage is what it is, or, he's not making as much profit off of this employee, but he is making profit off this employee. Now, all of a sudden, the minimum wage goes up. You have to pay this person more, but he's not able to do the work as good as this other guy, and now you're losing money on the man because he's not able to do the same amount of output. It's a very simplistic example, but you see where I'm going with this. This is what happens. Not only that, it also can create discontent in the workforce. If you have somebody who's been there for years, who's worked their way up, and now all of a sudden, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't compute. You're going to be incentive. Now you're like, well, I got to give everybody else a raise. A lot of business owners will now, to be fair, I need these people still, like the wage gap still needs to exist here, so it can cost even more money. People think being a small business owner is easy. That's the problem. I don't know what the answer is. I could tell you the answer is education, but I don't see how in the world you get enough people to realize through education efforts to not vote themselves more money. You know what I mean? We have other systems that are kind of institutionalized to do this. The property tax is one of those. Like, I don't understand why non-property owners get to vote to raise people's property taxes and millages. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're not paying for any of this. You don't own any property. It's kind of the same thing to me. You know what I mean? Like all these people went to the polls and voted to affect small business in this state, and none of them own small businesses. They don't know they have no idea the stress. Like, they just think the jobs are just always going to be there. That's not the case. Yeah, I didn't mean to ruffle feathers on that property tax thing, but that, you got to admit, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Where the entire see, that's mob rule to me. That is mob rule. That is the truest form of democracy, mob rule, where you're going to have all of these registered voters that don't own property are going to be able to tell the property owners that they now have to pay more money to the government. That just doesn't seem right to me. Telephone number 870-275-979. What time is? Oh, my goodness, I got to take a break, folks. Forgive me for going over. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a minute. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Interest demand.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, your energy prices are going up. Well, not everybody's. The Southwestern Electric Power Company, the government has approved their $23.9 million increase. Arkansas Democrat Gazette, this is from Talk Business and Politics. Arkansas Democrat Gazette both likewise say it's only going to be about $8.43 more per month. Only about 8.7% of the average Arkansan's bill. That's it. So, you know, I don't know. To me, you look at all the tax increases that we're having to pay here in the state of Arkansas, and now you're going to have the folks who are consumers of the Southwestern Electric Power Company. They're going to be paying more money a month. It's only $8.43, though, you know. It's always only such a small amount. It's only going to be $2 a year more. When you add it all up, though, it just gets ridiculous. You add it all up and you start thinking, how much is enough? How much? And, of course, everybody's on board with it. This is just part of it, is what they say. When I say everybody's on board with it, let me find the Gazette article here. Electric utilities boost okayed. Andrew Morrow mentioning the net overall increase approved by the Arkansas Public Service Commission will reach $23.9 million. But their initial request submitted in February was $57.6 million. Oh, okay. So the Arkansas Public Services Commission did us a favor there, right? They shaved off, quite a bit. Instead of $60 million, it's only going to be $23 million. State regulators made only a slight adjustment to the base rate increase that they submitted in October. They also have in here that they don't want to have to do this thing where they submit their increase in February and don't get it approved till October, or don't get it approved till the end of the year, that they would rather go to a different process where instead of increasing your rates every 10 years, they just increase your rates every 1 year. But when I say everybody's on board with it, it just seems like, listen to this. The October proposal was submitted with unanimous support from Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. Other parties in the settlement included the Board of Trustees of the U of A, Walmart, Western Arkansas Large Energy Consumers, and the Sierra Club. Sierra Club is a radical George Soros-funded environmental cuckoo company or group or whatever. Anyway, this company provides electricity to nearly 120,000 residential and commercial companies in 13 Arkansas counties. Anyway, so just add this to the tax bill as far as I'm concerned. Well, I mean, more money coming out of your pocket than last year. Call it whatever you will. It's just frustrating.
interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive, often with the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers. And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. You know, I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself, and I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. You know, we need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. We can't do it without you. Hey, folks, I want to welcome back to the program. We've got, from familycouncil.org, we have Sharice Dean is back with us. Sharice, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Glad to be here today.
Happy New Year to you as well. You got big plans for the for New Year's Eve?
Well, no, not really, but my same plans I always have. I plan to bring in the New Year and worship at my church.
Okay, well, good. That's awesome. I don't really have big plans either. Just going to be with family and that sort of thing. But so Sharice, I wanted to first of all, there's some great stories up at familycouncil.org that we can certainly direct the listeners to. So guys, go there right now. Familycouncil.org. This one I saw last week. I think. The Iowa man who burned the LGBT flag sentenced to 16 years for the hate crime. Jerry Cox posted that, so check that out, and just check out Family Council in general for the news of the day. But Sharice, tragedy struck over the holidays with the synagogue, and then of course you had the church shooting. What were your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, first of all, my family goes out to. My heart and my thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the victims. There were two victims from the church, Deacon Tony Tony Wallace and Rich White, who was part of the security. And my thoughts and prayers also go out to the gunman, Kinnaman. I just think it's an awful tragedy, but I'm so glad and happy at the same time that there were citizens there that were armed. They had their own volunteer security personnel who were able to take out the gunman in one fatal shot and protect over, I think, 240 members there at that church. It was an awful situation, but it could have turned out much worse had it not been for the fact that these everyday citizens were there to protect the parishioners.
Yeah, and that's because of a new law that Texas put into place, allowing churches to do that. Arkansas, we've already got a law in the books here in Arkansas. It just leaves it up to individual congregations. But it's not illegal to have a gun in a church, unless of course that church said we don't want guns. But just leave it up to the churches to decide what they want to do for their security. Exactly.
So glad that Texas had that law passed, and so glad that Arkansas has already thought about those things and has that law passed as well. It goes back to our basic Second Amendment rights that everyday citizens have the right to keep and bear arms, and that's to protect our family and friends and our community.
I guess the man who actually was the first to draw on the shooter and took him out, he was quoted in the news, and I can't believe the news is playing this because we seem to be in a world where we don't want to admit that there is evil. But he said, but the guy said, you know what? This is how I'm processing what I did. Is I killed evil. Like I took out somebody who was evil. What are your thoughts to that?
I think his name is Jack Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. And my heart goes out to him because that's a hard thing to have to do to take the life of another human being. But I think that's probably how I would process it as well, is that this was an evil act and I stopped an evil act. I stopped evil doing. And sometimes you have to process things differently. And the truth is, there is good and evil in this world. And there are people who choose to do good things and people who choose to do evil things. And it takes good people to stop people from doing evil things sometimes. And I'm just grateful that he was in that position and was well trained and armed to be able to stop even more lives from being taken.
I want to play this clip here, and I know this is getting into electoral politics here, but I do have to, while we're on the subject, from PJ Media, a guy by the name of Matt Margolis has this headline: Biden blasted the absolutely irrational Texas law that allowed lawful gun owners to stop the church shooting. There's this old Twitter video. This was back in September. Let's see if we can get this to play. Listen to this, Sharice. This is Joe Biden.
The second one is on dealing with firearms. It is irrational, with all due respect to the governor of Texas, irrational what they're doing. On the very day you see a mass shooting, I guess the numbers now, I was on a plane the last 2.5 hours, I think up to 5 killed, and we're talking about loosening access to have guns, be able to take them into places of worship, store them in school. I mean, it's just absolutely irrational.
It's absolutely irrational to take guns into places of worship. That's Joe Biden in September talking specifically, Sharice, about the Texas law.
Yeah, what's irrational is to think that people who are not law-abiding to begin with, who will break laws and carry guns and purchase guns however they like and take them wherever they want, not to allow the good citizens, those who are law-abiding citizens who will protect the innocent, to be able to do that with firearms. You basically leave the innocent and the good people unarmed and unprotected. That's what is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was talking about that a little bit yesterday, with the Democrats debating in this primary. It was a little bit refreshing that Beto O'Rourke, from Texas, was honest about, we're going to take your guns. Like that. And a lot of Democrats were like, oh, no, now you're going to make gun control harder because it's just this gradual thing. But it was refreshing. It's like, well, this is what we've been saying on the right a long time. Like, you're here to take our guns.
Right.
And you talk about being irrational. It's also cruel. What I mean by that is, like, the more immoral, and we definitely know the work that you guys do at Family Council, standing up for traditional American values, Christian values, the family, the family unit. We as a society are definitely, have experienced a moral rot from within. Family Council's doing a great job trying to restore that and protect what we have left. But if we're becoming more and more immoral, and there are more and more people that are now firing bullets at those of us who are law-abiding citizens, and the government's solution is to take guns away from us, I mean, that's making us even. I mean, that is so. If you think about it, it's and they're doing it in the name of protecting us, where we're not going to be able to send bullets back in the evil person's direction. I mean, it really is. You talk about immoral. I mean, how is that the government looking out for its citizens? It's the government just looking at us like livestock, I guess.
Right. I agree. It makes us a sitting target because people who don't follow laws will always be that way. It doesn't matter how many laws you pass on guns. If they are not law-abiding citizens, they will not abide by the law. So what do law-abiding citizens have to protect themselves? Nothing. They make us sitting targets. And it goes back to, like you said, immoral to leave the innocent and our families vulnerable and in a situation where they can be just taken advantage of.
Yeah. We're talking with Sharice Dean from Family Council. You can find out more at familycouncil.org. Sharice, I know this is, I know we're basically a year it's been almost a whole year, I guess, since the legislative session took place, that started back in January of this year. It's New Year's Eve.
Right.
I'm just curious, what are your thoughts legislatively moving forward? What would you like to see done at the Capitol in Little Rock the next time we get a shot, which won't be till 2021?
Well, thankfully, Arkansas still has good legislation in place that allows our citizens to protect themselves. I would say just ensuring that those rights are protected and aren't infringed upon, because there's always several bills being presented to infringe upon those Second Amendment rights. So my thing would be just protecting what rights have already been put in place.
Yeah.
And ensuring those rights are for every American citizen that's law-abiding. Once you've broken the law, then you get put into a different category, in my opinion. But as far as law-abiding citizens, every citizen, no matter their ethnicity or not background, but whoever you are, it doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, as long as you're an American citizen, you should have that right to keep and bear arms and protect you and yours. So I think just ensuring that is actually executed in Arkansas and just protect the laws that we already have in place.
Sharice Dean from Family Council, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for spending time with us this morning, and have a Happy New Year.
You're welcome. Happy New Year to you.
All righty. Okay. So, I mean, that is it's some really, really good points there. Can you believe what Biden said, though, about that law? That is insane. That he said it was irrational to allow parishioners to carry guns into churches, and yet that very law, had it not been there. Now, I mean, I don't know. It is Texas. How many people before Arkansas had their law that just allowed churches to decide what their policy was going to be were carrying anyway? Or better yet, like, how many people were already, like, how many churches were already acting autonomously in that way before they even could? I don't know. I just think there might be more than you think. More than you think. One more thing here. Let me pull this up. On Christmas Eve, this was at familycouncil.org. Let's listen to this real quick. I didn't see this until just now, but on Christmas Eve, here's how one church is making a difference in its community.
This is news from Family Council. A church in Virginia recently helped pay off $18,000 worth of its neighbors' school lunch debt in Stafford and Spotsylvania counties. The church, known as The Mount, said it wanted to be part of relieving their community's debt. The $18,000 donation eliminated all $10,400 worth of debt at 4 elementary schools in the Stafford County Public Schools District. The church also prepares backpacks full of school supplies for children and volunteers with several local ministries. The church's Facebook page stated that its mission is to make a difference in the world, adding that it is willing to take risks to invite, gather, give, and volunteer to reach one more person. The church's webpage concluded, "The Mount exists to reach one more for Christ. We are for one more." Family Council, promoting, protecting, and strengthening traditional family values in Arkansas. Visit us online at familycouncil.org.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, that's a positive story. That's pretty neat. There's all this debt, and the church steps in and says, you know what, we'll take care of that for all these families. And we'll do it around Christmas time. That's pretty cool. Hey, did anybody hear what Chuck Todd said the other day? Chuck Todd, this really infuriated me, and I saw it the other night. But the Washington Examiner's Beckett Adams, Chuck Todd is a reminder that the press treats faith as quaint and regressive. NBC News' Chuck Todd offered a good reminder this weekend that many in the press view people of faith as regressive knuckle-draggers. On Sunday, the Meet the Press host highlighted a letter to the editor from a Kentucky newspaper that claims only a person who enjoys fairy tales like Noah's Ark could vote for a man like President Trump. Todd called the letter a fascinating attempt by a Lexington Herald reader to explain the president's support. He goes on, the letter itself states, why do good people support Trump? It's because people have been trained from childhood to believe in fairy tales. It adds, from childhood, they were told stories that were fascinating but simply not true. This set their minds up to accept things that make them feel good. Later in life, some people mature, study facts and cause and effect, and start thinking more logically, even if the results are undesirable. This reads like something copied straight from the Reddit atheist page. The letter continues, and again, Chuck Todd was addressing this. So you have this population that loves Trump because he makes them feel good. The more fairy tales and lies he tells, the better they feel. Trump is a master liar who knows what makes people feel good, and that is what he goes with. Sure, it would be nice if climate change did not exist. Show me a person who believes in Noah's Ark, and I will show you a Trump voter. There are multiple solid scientific reasons the Ark did not happen. Some people learn this, and some don't, and those who don't will accept Trump. But can the world survive on fairy tales? Wow. Yeah, I think Chuck Todd's a bigot, but maybe that's just me. Show me a person that believes in the biblical account of Noah's Ark, and I'll show you a Trump supporter. Well, I saw this on Twitter. Show me somebody that believes in spirit cookings, and I'll show you a Hillary Clinton voter. I'll tell you that much right now. Show me somebody who believes that a baby is not a baby, just a clump of cells, and I'll show you a Democrat. I'll show you a Democrat voter. By the way, there are plenty of people who don't support Trump out there who believe in Noah's Ark, who believe in the biblical account. Every major civilization has a flood account. We would be idiots to not take it as serious. There was clearly a deluge in this planet. Now, they're specifically talking about Noah's Ark. But, I mean, there are extra biblical texts that support what happened with the Ark. But, I mean, all I need is the Bible personally. But this story over at the Washington Examiner goes on. For the record, at least 3 major faiths, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, believe in the flood narrative. We're currently in the 8th and final day of Hanukkah and the 5th day of Christmas. This fairy tale slander is some excellent timing by Chuck Todd, especially coming on the heels of Saturday's machete attack at a Hanukkah celebration in New York. Look, said Meet the Press host following his recitation of the letter, this gets at something that my executive producer likes to say. Voters want to be lied to sometimes. They don't always love being told hard truths. Todd's guests, New York Times executive editor Dean Baquette and Washington Post executive editor Martin Barron, put as much distance as possible between themselves and the strange choice to hold up this letter as some kind of sound thinking. Quote, we can't dismiss everybody that supports Donald Trump, Baquette said. I think we have to get out in America much more than we do and talk to people. Barron then responded, I don't want to be dismissive of people who support the president. Todd's promotion of this letter to the editor is not just a cheap shot at those who voted for the current president, but it is also an act of extreme cowardice. Todd agrees with the sentiments expressed by the Lexington Herald leader. He just does not have the guts to claim ownership of them himself. By pretending he merely found the letter fascinating enough to recite it on national television, Todd can claim he did not say that thing about fairy tales and Trump voters. The letter said it. Wink. It only makes things worse that the letter isn't that terribly profound or insightful. It really just is the sort of partisan expression you'd expect to see in a letter to the editor about the other side deluding themselves. Not everyone is as stupid as Todd thinks. It does not take a genius to see why, of all the letters to the editor in the newspaper in the world, the Poynter Institute's Media Personality of the Year chose the one letter that claims Trump supporters enjoy fairy tales like Noah's Ark. Anyway, yeah. What is this? I mean, what does this say about the media itself? I mean, these are the people delivering you the news. They have a contempt for flyover country. They have a contempt for people that believe in a higher power. They have a contempt for people that believe in a biblical worldview, that believe what the Bible says is true. I just really hope people start to see the truth this year. And ironically, while this guy gets on national television and trashes people who believe in God, believe in Jesus, believe in the Holy Spirit, what is it that I've been saying about the clergy of our day, the news priests? It really is fitting here, isn't it? They're treated as though they are the media, the fact checkers. They're treated as priests that can absolve you or condemn you of wrongdoing. And they do this based on arbitrary ideas that change from day to day to fit what they want. No wonder they're afraid to think, contemplate about a higher power that exists, that is true and absolute. Because then they're not able to just do what they want. We've got to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
And you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools, as well as propaganda, to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org. Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News, the parent. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell.
All right, what will the 2020 year bring? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I have my hopes. I have some few dietary resolutions that I need to make. I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve and a happy New Year's Day. And, who knows what this year will bring politically. Obviously, the presidential election, but also here in the state of Arkansas. Will we finally get some more mainstream media journalists to cover the obvious scandal that is the Chinese government and their communist companies coming here and also paying the governor's law firm that his son is running money and that whole thing. I mean, it's still, we have so many more questions about that. We'll see. Will that happen in 2020? Who knows? Regardless, we press on. We'll see you Thursday on the new format.